Thanks for joining me for today's CareCast. We've been exploring Jean Vanier's Becoming Human, and I hope that you've enjoyed this journey of learning how to care for ourselves and how to care for other people. In this book, he brings us to this place where we are moving from exclusion to inclusion, from pushing people aside to embrace. And in chapter 4, he discusses the path to freedom. And that path to freedom involves the freedom to choose. That if we're truly going to be included, we can't be forced down this road. We have to choose it freely. That compulsions of all sorts, even good ones, ultimately lead to a place of guilt and shame and will ultimately be like the snake that eats its own tail. Behind every compulsion is an anguish, is an anxiety, is a fear, is a shame, is a guilt. And that guilt ultimately leads to sin. We know this from the Apostle Paul. We know this from theology. We know this from all of our psychology. It does not ultimately work. And so as we enter into this path of freedom, as we have this freedom of choice, that freedom also puts to death the false self. When I'm free, then I don't have to put on facades. I don't have to wear masks. I do not have to wear warrior armor around the world because I am under no compulsion to be something that I am not. That's why in our Sacred Space cast each and every single week, there's this movement, right? From the presence of God into freedom. It's that freedom spot where you and I discover who we truly are. That in God we are safe. We are secure. We are saved. And so in that place, I can put to death the false self and instead get on this road of freedom. This road will ultimately lead to this place called accompaniment. Now, I've mentioned this in previous weeks before. Accompaniment is a big deal to Jean Vanier and Becoming Human. What does it mean for us to walk alongside? What does it mean for us to walk with someone? He says on page 128, for this discovery, people often need help from somebody who walks with them, an accompanier. One of the most important factors for inner liberation is how we are accompanied. We must ask ourselves, who is walking with me? So my fourth step to freedom involves accompaniment. An accompanier is someone who can stand beside us on the road to freedom. Someone who loves us and understands our life. An accompanier can be a parent, a teacher, a friend, anyone who can put a name on our inner pain and feelings. Hear that part? Anyone who can put a name on our inner pain and feelings. Accompaniers may be professionals or therapists, those who have experienced in untying knots that block us in our development. They may be ordained ministers or other people who have grown in the ways of God who seek to help us to understand others' humanity and needs and help us recognize God's call to communion, inner liberation, and a greater love of self. And I would add, an accompanier can be anyone who is seeking to care, to provide compassion, who has concern, who is willing to spend the time to have insight into the longings and losses of another person. Friends, that accompanier can be you. Can be you along the way who goes beyond the surface level of care and instead goes to these inner places that allows another person to know, not just feel, but to know they belong to you. And when they know they belong to you, friend, here's this other piece that happens. They know they belong to Almighty God. My hope for you on this journey of care is that you will begin to accompany folks, that you will come alongside, that you will enter into these covenant relationships with them, that you will be a hub of God's goodness and grace and hope and healing in the world, that you will see yourself as a spiritually vibrant person, household, neighbor, that you will be the nexus of God's kingdom activity in the world. Thanks for joining me today.